follow your dream. If you feel you can do it, do it. But don't make some mistakes that I did in the beginning. Stay with what you know. Stay with references that you know.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming to another episode of Writing Inspirations with Markee Books. I'm your host, Dan Ricoveri, and this is our guest for today, Brian O'Callaghan. Hello, Brian. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you very much, and thank you for having me, Daniel.
So, Brian, tell me, how long has you been a writer?
How long have I been an author? Has been maybe about 3 years now in publishing my first novel. But as a writer, I have been doing it for years. Technical writing, manuals and such on various job sites that I worked for. But I've always enjoyed writing. I've always liked the creative process. And I've always had this book in one form or another being formed. And over the years, it morphed into one, into another, and then finally, Bone Deep Blues is what developed. I'm very happy with it. I'm very pleased with it. And the reviews that I'm getting so far on it are very good. So it took me about a good 2 years to write it, about another year in the process of getting it up and running and out. And May of this year, it's been on Amazon.
That's great. So, how do you feel after you officially became a professional writer?
It's liberating. I like the concept of it. I like that it's out there. I like seeing it. My background certainly fed into this. I have a wide-ranging background, but the core of it in my earlier years where I was an EMT, a firefighter, a police detective, at one point or another. I left the firefighter because it was too dangerous, so I became a police detective.
Well, the dangers, it's different, but yeah.
Well, falling through the floor of a house during a house fire kind of led me to become a police officer. But, all of those things are, melded into what I am today. And those who know me well can pick out parts of the book that they know, even though the book is fiction, they know those parts are kind of real, because I kind of experienced them, So there's a lot of me in that book. And it's the first of a series. So there's a second book due out in December. The working title for that right now is Fire and Ice Blues. And because it's a series, I'm keeping the name Blues in there because the protagonist is a blues artist, a blues musician, former Navy SEAL who, got injured after rehab, got involved in music, and he travels around with the band and things happen and friends get involved and so forth. So there's an undercurrent of blues and blues music in the books.
Okay. That sounds very good. So tell me, did you get inspired by the work of another author? Like, do you have a favorite author that you usually look for inspiration?
There are so many that I have read over the years that have inspired me and their characters that I enjoy. I guess it's not unusual for people to enjoy a series, but I tend to gravitate more to books that are in serial form. James Patterson's Alex Cross was a big read for me. The Jack Reacher series I enjoyed greatly. Clive Clusser with Dirk Pitt and his Oregon Files. Those two series. I've read every book in all of those series. The books about Bosch, the detective that became a TV show. There's been quite a lot. And there's another author that I have personally contacted and we've gotten to know each other, Christopher Grayson. He writes books and one of the characters that he has is a Jack Stratton, which is a cop who became a private detective. And there's plenty more too. But they're the ones that come to mind initially. And of course, going back to my earlier days, the Hardy Boys. When I was a kid, I started reading the Ellery Queen mysteries and the Hardy Boys, and they were all just great, and they got me going.
I know then. My mom had the series on my house.
You're saying I'm old?
Well, my mother is an avid reader, so yeah. and she loved mystery. So we got many stories like that on my house.
Yeah, it's funny how our early readings influence our lives. My wife is a caregiver, and we were talking just recently about all of this, and and I was talking about how I really got started on the Hardy Boys and had the entire collection at one point, and obviously read them all. And for the life of me now, I can't think of the name of the character, but she read a similar series about a nurse, growing and while she was growing up. So whether or not that influenced her to become a caretaker and the Hardy Boys led me into police work, who knows? But it seems that way anyway.
Okay, so I have this question. What was the thing you struggled the most when you were starting?
Continuity.
Oh.
Because obviously I didn't sit down at the typewriter and start at page one and end at the end. So the book kind of morphed a little bit as I went through. Some of the characters changed a little bit. So one of the things I struggled with was just making sure my timelines were in the correct sequences, and that when I jumped from scene to scene, that I wasn't jumping out of the timeline as well. So that was one of the first early challenges, especially as a new novelist. My second book is moving a lot quicker and a lot smoother. But, that and the research and just building the characters and giving them a life, beyond the pages that they were currently on, all played into it. And I think it worked well. Again, I hope readers agree with me, but I think it's a very well-written book, and people are saying things like it's engaging and it's fun read. And several people told me it should be a movie. So if anybody's out there that's a producer, give me a call. Jeffrey Dean Morgan, you got the lead if you're out there listening.
So I wanted to ask you, how did you deal with when you couldn't write or when you went on the slumps or stuff like that?
No, I don't think I was ever really in a slump. I think what delayed some of the process was more having to work for a living, and not being able just to sit down and spend 8 hours a day at the computer. I work from home now in my current job, and it allows me more time to do what I'm doing. So it's a smoother process now than it was in the beginning. But it was a long haul and came to fruition and is very gratifying.
Okay. Do you have an advice for new writers starting right now?
I would say follow your dream. If you feel you can do it, do it. But don't make some mistakes that I did in the beginning. Stay with what you know. Stay with references that you know. My first version of the book was not New York City. So when I changed it to New York City and I changed it to areas and sites that I lived on or moved within or worked around, and I knew more firsthand, it was starting to make much more sense to me. So, the old adage, write what you know, do what you know. It works. It really does work.
Wow. Yeah, I guess it doesn't work for fantasy writers.
Well, it depends on what your fantasy is.
Well, yeah. Actually, maintaining consistency in a fictional world is a little bit more tricky. So, you were talking us about your book. This is your only published book till now, right? The one you were talking about.
Right. This is the first actual book that I published. All the writings I did earlier were, work-related or newspaper articles or things along those lines, or political campaign things that I was involved in. But this was the actual first book that I published. Second one's coming out in December. Where it goes from there, God only knows.
You finished the second one very quickly compared to the first one.
Well, I'm shooting for December because I feel it's attainable at this point because I'm that deep into it. Whether or not it happens, I may be a month or two off, but like I said, it's moving quicker. I got the rhythm down that I didn't have the first time around. So, yeah, it's moving quicker and it's moving easier.
That's good to hear. So, do you have like a schedule for work or a way to manage your time? Like you finish your day job and you wrote like 1,000 words, something like that?
Exactly. It's 1,000 words a day. That's my minimum goal. And some days I just might be doing background or locale descriptions or something like that, which are all necessary for the book. And I work towards the end goal of getting it all put together in one format. But yeah, I get to a point of the day when I have no further distractions. I sit down and I put myself in the hands of the computer again. And if I can hit 1,000 or 1,200 words for that day, I feel like I've accomplished something.
Yeah, I know what you mean. My publisher actually tried to make me do 3,000 every day. It's a lot. I usually take like 4 hours to do that. So yeah.
Yeah, the problem I fear with a too lofty a goal of 3 or 4,000 words a day is that I don't want to get into, what we all did in high school when you had to write a certain number of words. You start just drawing sentences to make the goal. I'd rather keep the book simple and concise. And if that means lowering the goal to 1,200 or 1,000 or 1,200 words a day, I'm satisfied with that. If I do more, if I'm really, really kicking it out that day, then all the better, because I didn't want to get into, stretching things out just to match those goals. So I keep the books simple. I keep the books concise. And if I hit my 1,200 words or 1,000 words a day, I'm satisfied. And I met my goals for the day.
Your first book, how long it is? How many pages?
I think it's like 410. It's about 126,000 words.
Okay, that's nice. So, how many books are you planning for this series?
On paper, I'm looking at 5. Let's see how they do, and then it can go more, or I can spin off to other characters that I have in the back of my head.
That's nice. So, you're prepared to stay with this setting and this world for a long time?
Maybe not solely, do something in between, more of a standalone somewhere, or maybe back and do an origin story or something. But I like this character, and the people that have read it so far are looking for more from that character. So, yeah, right now, J.D. Walker, who's the protagonist in my book, is going to get a lot of attention. Him and his wife, Nora, who is going to get a much bigger role in the second book.
Okay. Have you ever thought on doing another genre or series in another world setting, or you prefer more realistic type stories?
I have a tendency to lean more towards the realistic. I have read and watched enough fantasy that I probably could handle it. And I've toyed with some shorter things and to see where they went. And it's not outside of the realm of possibility. It's certainly doable.
That sounds great. So tell me, do you have plans for going to events or something where people could meet you, like a signing, etc.?
Yes and no. I would like to do something along those lines. I've often thought about doing some kind of convention setting. I recently went to one that was geared more to comic books, and I met several authors there that were selling their books. And I have a friend who is a big comic book illustrator and writer, and he was there, so I kind of went to see him direct. So it's a distinct possibility. One of the issues with that, though, is that since my book is primarily e-copy on Amazon, and the printing process is, print on demand, I would have to get a little stock load of books to bring with me to sell. But, I've been asked repeatedly by people, how can I get you to sign my book? So those things do come into play. So it's definitely on the agenda.
Okay, tell me, apart from Amazon, do you have your book on sale on other platforms?
No, right now it's just Amazon. with the re-release of the first book with the second book in the series, whether it's December or January or whenever that ultimately comes, I'm looking to expand at that point. But right now I was testing the waters with Amazon, and we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, have you heard that they say it's better to publish a whole series instead of individual books because they say it sells better?
I've heard that, and I know from my personal experience that when I see an author has got a new book out and it's book 18 of a series and I've read the first 17, I'm automatically buying book 18 without even looking at what it's about. Like I said, the Alex Cross is a good example of that. Probably one of the bigger book series, or Clive Cluster with his Dirk Pitt novels. There are quite a number of books in those series. Again, read them all, and I see a new one, I just jump right on it.
Wow, 18? Actually, I don't think I ever made the series over 12. Well, I think it's doable. The books are like 200 pages.
I know. Patterson puts a lot of effort into his books. They're lengthy, and I think his latest Cross book is book 18. So, yep.
So tell me, are you on social media so your fans can ask you questions or stuff?
Yeah, my primary authors page is on Facebook, Brian R. O'Callahan. It's on Facebook. But I have a presence on Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Pinterest, and whatever else is out there.
I didn't know people do that on Pinterest. Interesting.
It was suggested. I used it, but where I'm seeing the most responses from Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, X.
Yeah, the Bookstagram, how they call it. I have seen it.
Yep.
Well, Ryan, thank you so much for coming. That's all for now. I hope we can see you again soon. Maybe when you publish the second book, we can talk a bit about it.
Love to. I'll reach out. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you so much for coming. This was Writing Inspiration with Markee Books.
Have a good day.